Welcome to SE Thrive's Workplace Bullying. We'd like to thank everyone for joining us on our Mental Health Matters Forum today. We hope you will join us each first Friday of the month at 11:30 a.m. for a new topic and conversation. Today, our topic is workplace bullying, and we have a guest. So just to give you an idea of what SE Thrive is all about, SE Thrive leads South Carolinians to stability by providing innovative and efficient access to quality of life resources. What does that mean? Basically, we help people in crisis and we connect them with the resources that they need to be self-sustained in the future. So today, our guest speaker is going to help me divulge how to work in a wellness, well-being community at your workplace. Maggie, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me today.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself today?
Sure. So I work for Mental Health America of Ohio out of Columbus, Ohio, and we're an affiliate of the National Mental Health America. For the past almost 5 years, have been working exclusively on helping organizations create healthy work environments. So I do some pretty detailed assessments with them and figure out, what their needs are and how to improve things for their employees. I've done about, over 60 of these assessments over the past 4 years and have really seen some positive changes. So I'm excited to be here today to talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you for coming. People often think of bullying as a problem in the schoolyard. However, this issue is becoming more and more prominent in the workplace. Bullying is considered a targeted effort to destroy the reputation or interpersonal relationship of an employee. In most cases, the bully singles out one person, recruits others to join in on the bullying tactics. These actions create isolation of the targeted person. Workplace bullying can be defined as negative interpersonal acts on the job which victims cannot cope with or control. It can take the form of social isolation, direct harassment, intimidating behavior, work-related criticism, and physical violence. This often leads to victims experiencing psychological stress, intrusive and worrisome thoughts, avoidance behavior, and hyperarousal, being on guard all the time. The kind of bully that causes the most stress generally involves outright harassment and intimidation. Although the subtle form of bullying in which coworkers engage in social isolation of the targeted person can be highly stressful as well. Bullying can be verbal, psychological, physical, and it also can be online. It can also include blacklisting from future employment opportunities or advancements within a company. Research shows that many people experience workplace bullying. Approximately 2 out of every 5 people have been bullied at work, and almost half of those targeted at work suffer stress-related health problems. Almost 1 in 6 workers, or 16% roughly, have quit their job due to workplace stress. This high stress situation can have serious effects on an individual's physical health, mental health, and relationships, as well as fear of retaliation or even job loss prevents many people from reporting abusive behavior at work. When the behavior is reported, employers often mishandle responses or justify bullying as a leadership style. So I want to introduce this video. It's about microaggression, and it's a form of bullying. It's subtle, but you'll see what I mean.
Becoming more aware of what we say and do isn't about being politically correct or walking on eggshells. It's about being responsive to one another.
We invite people to tell their own stories instead of assuming we know who they are based on the groups we think they belong to.
And sometimes our outward comments and actions are influenced by stereotypes we may not even know we carry.
We have to talk about where to have the offsite retreat, training topics, any suggestions?
I didn't quite understand you, but what about the community center? We've had some great events there.
Nice, but they share parking with a retirement home, and you know we always have to fight for parking spots with those old slow pokes. Not Steven though. You know, Steven has a handicap parking pass, so he can park anywhere he wants.
Parking isn't an issue. There's plenty of it. The place also has a kitchen where we could do a potluck. Elena, you could make some of that homemade salsa. My wife makes an outrageous potato salad, and I can sweet talk her and maybe make us some of that.
One of the rooms down there is kind of stark and kind of boring and could probably use like a little bit more like color and stuff. So I don't know, Aiden, you could probably like add some color and some decor and, you know, maybe some flair.
When a person feels slighted, he or she might disengage. And when a person disengages, we lose out on what that individual brings to our team.
Under the South Carolina Human Affairs law, it is illegal to discriminate against someone, applicants, or employees because of that person's race, color, religion, or sex, including pregnancy, childbirth, lactation, or related medical conditions, national origin, or age, or disability. It is also illegal to retaliate against a person because he or she complained about discrimination, filed a charge of discrimination, or participated in an employment discrimination investigation or lawsuit. The law forbids discrimination in every aspect of employment. Did you know that when deciding which employee will be laid off, an employer may not choose the oldest worker because of their age? Employers also may not discriminate when deciding which workers to recall after a layoff. So what is cyberbullying? You always think of a teenager or a little kid on a video game, maybe playing on Xbox or PlayStation, and hearing the other person say some unnice things. Well, cyberbullying can also happen to adults. Cell phones, computers are not to blame themselves for cyberbullying. Social media sites can be used for positive activities like connecting with friends and family, helping students with school, and for entertainment. However, these tools can also be used to hurt other people. Whether done in person or through technology, the effects of bullying are still the same. Gossip. Gossip can be positive or negative. Positive gossip serves two useful purposes. One is that the person listening to the gossip feels socially included and part of the team, reducing their own social anxiety and building a sense of personal connection between employees. The second is that the gossip can help employees learn the unwritten rules of your company, the culture, without having to risk disapproval or conflict by asking awkward questions. The first step in dealing with harmful gossip is to learn to recognize it. Harmful gossip is different because it excludes and isolates its target. Harmful gossip is a form of bullying. Now we're going to watch a video about one phrase to stop the gossip.
Gossip has no place in a respectful and mature society. Yet it does exist, and unfortunately, adults are usually the one who are spreading it. Gossip is associated with idle talk or rumors about someone's personal life or decisions. You have likely heard gossip or even been in the gossip circles yourself. Today, we will discuss the topic of gossip, who it affects, and how to stop it. Have you ever wondered why we gossip? Many people engage in and encourage gossiping. There are so many reality shows and gossip magazines in the media today. We inherently talk about what is going on in our lives and of those that we know and love, yet we usually do this in a loving way. Most of the time, we tend to gossip about someone that we do not like and we get some juicy information about. While at the time the information may be interesting, it is not a good idea to engage in this behavior. Most of the time, you will find that people gossip because they do not feel good about themselves. It is easy to bring down others rather than to focus on themselves and how to improve. They are often looking for attention, and if they provide some juicy gossip to others, they will get swarmed around by others and made to feel important. Many psychologists have studied the act of gossiping. Studies have found that gossiping is just as harmful to the gossiper as it is to the person being talked about. Can you believe that 60% of conversations between adults are about someone who is not present in that conversation? That is ridiculous. Now that we know that most people gossip, the question becomes, how do we stop? If someone is trying to drag you into a conversation about someone else that you really do not want to be in, simply ask them, why are you telling me this? This question will stop them in their tracks because it disrupts their motive and their thought process. It takes away the attention off of them. It also makes it clear to them that you are not interested in being involved in this conversation. When you ask this question, they will stop. They may mumble some kind of an answer, but it is never a good, legitimate one. At that point, you can clearly state that you do not wish to be involved in that discussion and suggest that they discuss their information with the person that they are talking about. Our society has become one that revolves around other people's pains. Instead of joining this trend, refuse to engage in a conversation about a person that they would likely be hurt by should they overhear it.
So I hope that helped a little bit with understanding what gossip does and the impact on other people. So I would encourage you to ask the question, why are you telling me this? Aside from stress and depression being a major concern when talking about mental health in the workplace, according to depression stats provided by Mental Health America, depression is one of three biggest problems for employees, assistants, professionals, with family crisis and stress being the first two. Psychological effects of bullying and harassment may include thinking and worrying about work constantly, even during time off, dreading work and wanting to stay home, needing time off to recover from stress, losing interest in things that you usually like to do, suicidal thoughts, low self-esteem, self-doubt, and wondering if you imagine the bullying. If you're being bullied, you may feel sick or anxious before work and when thinking about work, have physical symptoms such as digestive problems or high blood pressure, have a higher risk of type 2 diabetes, have trouble waking up or getting quality sleep, and have somatic symptoms such as headaches and decreased appetite. So if you notice you're having those issues, I encourage you to seek out help. It's okay to say I'm not okay. And it's okay if you need help. Research shows that many people experience workplace bullying. In this picture, you see a lot of people, well, mainly 3 people with their hands on their heads, maybe like covering their mouth, trying to figure out, is this really happening? Well, newsflash, it really is happening. Sometimes the bullying can be verbal or psychological or online. Even when the behavior is reported, people need to pay attention. If you believe you're being bullied, the possible actions steps include bringing the situation to the attention of your supervisor or the next person in the chain of command if your supervisor is the issue. Keeping notes detailing the nature of bullying, like dates, times, places, what was said or done, who was present. Expecting the bully to deny or perhaps misconstrue your accusations, have a witness with you during a meeting with the bully. Never go alone. Report the behavior to the inappropriate person or appropriate department. If you turn in your paperwork, make sure you have a copy of it. You might need it. And for other people, if you've witnessed someone being bullied, show support to the individual being bullied. And if comfortable, confront the bully in a constructive manner about his or her behavior and its effect on the workplace. The effects on the workplace are a lot. You have loss of productivity. You have the individual might just quit because of it. People call in sick. And people might even be afraid of the individual. You don't want to have a hostile working environment. Let a supervisor or the HR department know the situation is persisting or if it's even happening. Maggie, can you tell us a little bit about the drivers of workplace well-being?
Yeah, thank you. So I am definitely not an expert on workplace bullying specifically, but I do know a little bit about what makes a healthy work environment. And these are the things that we study and learn about from the organizations that we work with. So I'm not sure if we have more employees or employers on the call, but this is helpful for both to understand what makes up a healthy and engaged workforce. So all of these things in green, we call these the 10 dimensions of workplace well-being. And when you kind of lump all these together, what you find out and what we look for is what the scores are within these dimensions. So things that impact their work environment are emotional exhaustion. We work a lot with behavioral health organizations. And so emotional exhaustion, any helping profession, where there's frontline staff doing really hard jobs, sometimes sad jobs, and oftentimes for low pay, emotional exhaustion is high. But work engagement, finding meaning in your work and feeling energized by your work, feeling like you're doing something good and positive for other people or your community really can help, with about good feeling about your work engagement. People like to feel challenged. They like to be able to focus. You like when, oh my gosh, my morning's gone already and I didn't even realize it because I was so engrossed in what I was doing. Colleague support and supervisor support are vitally important in a healthy work environment. In talking about workplace bullying specifically, colleague support and interpersonal relationships, we know are both things that if they are strong, they're going to help, to decrease turnover, but also they really help to mitigate the feelings of emotional exhaustion. If you have strong relationships with your peers at work, While the work itself might still be hard, the relationships at least serve a little bit as a buffer for those feelings, the intensity of those feelings. You have other people going through it with you, or you have people that you can share how you're feeling, that get it, or it can be a kind of sounding board or soft place to land with some of the tough stuff that you deal with at work. One of the things that we see most important in a strong work environment is having strong supervisors. The supervisors are often the glue that keep a organization together, because the supervisors are kind of, they're situated in the middle. So they have this line of sight both up and down within the organization. They have a little bit more knowledge about what's going on from the leadership level and strategically and just organizationally, but then they really understand what the frontline workers are going through too. And so having strong supervisors really helps the communication to stay open from the top to the bottom and back up. The hardest thing is a lot of supervisors are put in supervisory roles and not set up to succeed. If somebody is, say, a really strong case manager, for instance, and they've done that role really well, they get promoted. And being a case manager, it takes a very specific set of skills, but being a strong supervisor takes a whole different set of skills. And if organizations aren't allowing those supervisors to be trained or putting specific trainings into place for them, then it's kind of a recipe for disaster all around. The supervisor doesn't feel like they're doing a good job. The frontline staff isn't getting what they need from a supervisor. And ultimately, leadership feels, frustrated because there's performance issues down the pipe a little bit. So making sure that your supervisors are set up to succeed, giving them the support that they need as supervisors is really, really important within organizations. Work demands, realistic expectations. In Ohio, what we hear a lot in behavioral health organizations in particular is that productivity requirements are really unmanageable. A lot of it is determined by Medicaid reimbursement. And so I'm not sure if, it's the same across the board. I'm sure it's probably similar, but it just seems like, they're expected to do too much with too little. And, that is another situation in which can cause for an unhealthy work environment. Because when people have too high of work demands and they're emotionally exhausted, then, they tend to want to leave and they turn over. And so what happens then is when organizations are short-staffed, the extra weight falls on the existing employees, and then they have even greater workloads while you're trying to backfill and rehire for these positions. And so it becomes this vicious cycle because, then you have other employees whose work demands and emotional exhaustion are hitting their breaking point as you're trying to restaff. So what we know about turnover is that it generally costs about 20% of an employee's salary to refill the position. So if you have a $40,000 employee, to refill their position, it costs about $8,000, not to mention the institutional knowledge that's lost. And in helping professions, it really trickles down to the clients. If you're working in mental health or home care or any type of childcare setting, continuity of care is really important. Having the same person helping you over time where you have time to develop a relationship and trust is really, really important. So, having continuity and low turnovers is important in these types of professions. And then the other thing, I think that isn't maybe as intuitive is just this notion of distributive justice. And this is a perception of fairness in the organization. It really matters to employees that things feel fair. Whether that is pay, praise, ability to move up within the organization, how, rewards are given. it matters. And it is truly, perception is reality, particularly in a workplace. And so making sure that things are done in a balanced and fair way is important. Other things we look at generally are pay satisfaction. We find that pay satisfaction is always the most important factor if somebody is not making a livable wage.
Right.
So if somebody has to have more than one job, then pay satisfaction is always the most important thing, that we hear. When they are making a livable wage, some of these other things tend to kind of jump pay satisfaction. And then benefit satisfaction and, discrimination and exclusion issues. So I'm good with that one. So when we work with these organizations, everything that we recommend, we do a big survey and we talk to a bunch of employees to really get a clear picture as to what's going on. And everything that we recommend is based on this foundation, this idea of positive sentiment override. And it's super interesting because it's really a notion that was created by this therapist, John Gottman. I don't know if there's any clinicians on the phone or on the call that might be familiar with him, but he's a guy that could predict divorce in couples. And what's really interesting is as we've studied organizations, it's these same foundational things that cause an employee to split from an organization, so it's really this idea of positive sentiment override is like this foundation of trust that this other person or my organization has my best interests in mind, that even if things are hard, I know they're doing things in a way that's taking me into consideration. It's not intended to hurt me. And even if I don't have full transparency into something, I still trust that they're doing it with me and my fellow employees in mind. The most important thing about positive sentiment override, or PSO as we call it, is that it creates this sense of psychological safety, which is exactly the opposite of what a bullying environment creates. And it allows for way more effective problem solving. So think about your own organization as you look at this list, and think about, how employees are viewed, how communication happens, how, if things are done fairly. And a strong and healthy organization, has these attributes that sit on the left side of this chart. Whenever we hear organizations say our clients are our most important asset, we tell them that while the clients are vitally important, if you put your employees first, then your clients will get the best care. Whatever the organization is, your clients will get the best care and the best service that is possible because your employees are motivated to do a good job for your company. So when you put your employees first, you will find higher productivity, you'll find lower turnover rates, you'll find general job satisfaction, and you'll find that not only are they doing their jobs at a higher productive rate, they're doing them better too. So, I don't think I need to read through this whole list, but some of these things, they all really point to strong communication. And what we were talking about earlier regarding gossip, one thing that we know about organizations is transparency is key. Most employees understand that there are certain things that can't be shared publicly. They understand if there are HR issues. They understand if there's things that, organizationally have not yet fully been announced. But when it comes to general decisions and why things happen, we always just say the greater the transparency, the quieter the grapevine. And, with the gossip part of things, most of the time, if you don't feel good about where you work or who you work with, then you're filling in the blanks with negativity. Whereas if you have positive sentiment override and you don't know the answers, you're still trusting that they're doing things the right way. So, bullying and interpersonal issues within a workplace certainly are a huge factor in creating low job satisfaction and turnover. And that is something that we see when that is non-existent or, very low in a workplace. General job satisfaction and turnover rates. Job satisfaction is higher and turnover rates are much lower.
So I have a question for you.
Sure.
How can a leader impact the wellness of a remote worker? Would it be the same positive sentiment override?
Yeah, it's been really interesting as we've been doing these assessments during COVID. I think one thing that we've seen that's been very helpful is when leaders understand that capacity is lower generally right now. That people's ability to function the same way they did pre-COVID is not the same. For my organization, for example, we fill out timesheets, and our leader has given us this kind of like block that we can use called work from home, other responsibilities, and recognizes that, a lot of us are trying to homeschool or we're taking care of another family member. There's just things being at home when other people are also at home. So I think just right, exactly. I mean, it's just, it is understanding that a whole person comes to work. It isn't, things from home don't turn off, especially right now. And so offering that grace, and understanding that capacities are diminished, not to mention that we're all dealing with a lot of different, cultural and, public health trauma with the last year. So I just think that looking at it from we're actually all people and we're not robots, and we have to look at it from what can we truly expect from people right now position.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So we have a producer today, and Barbara, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do not have any questions right now.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll continue. And Maggie, if you could just hang out with me and
sure.
All righty. And we'll go back. So what does it matter? Or why does it matter? It matters because you need to identify if you're being bullied. You need to identify if you're overstressed or under-addressed stress. Sorry, that's a tongue tire for me. If you have under-addressed stress, it can lead to depression or burnout, which could also impact your love life. It can impact your home life, the interactions you have with people in your family. You can go to a gas station and just snap on somebody because you're stressed and you don't even realize it. So we want you to know that it's okay not to be okay, but get the help that you need. If you're not eating right, if you're not sleeping 7 to 8 hours, if you don't know the definition of chill and breathe, you need to stop and take a deep breath in and take a deep breath out. Sometimes it's just waking up 10 minutes early to take a cup of coffee and enjoy nature. Hear the birds chirp, sit out on your front porch, turn off the phone, turn off the TV. Sometimes we just need to decompress from the internet, the phone, and technology and just enjoy the nature. Enjoy seeing the colors on the trees. Enjoy seeing kids play. You might even want to run a 5K. Get active. Sometimes it's the endorphins that make the difference. Studies show that a positive correlation between stress, among workers and job burnout. This means that burnout among workers relates to the well-being and quality of life and caring effectiveness. This is why self-care is important. Not only do you have to identify if you're being bullied, but you have to take care of self first. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you're in a better mood, it tends to reflect in your day-to-day activities, which means it allows you to have a good relationship with yourself and others. So we've talked about with Maggie about ocumetrics. I did some research, Maggie, about ocumetrics, and I found that it was interesting. And I just wanted to share with the group because I never knew about ocumetrics until I met you. And then I did some research and I did some more research and it sounded pretty interesting. So I wanted to tell everybody ocumetrics, the different steps of ocumetrics and how it helps. Can you go into detail, a little bit more detail than what's on the screen?
Sure. So what we've been doing in Ohio and Michigan is working with organizations, like I said, doing these assessments. And the assessments, really 3 parts and sometimes even more, because we start with a survey. The survey is pretty in-depth, and we do a type of survey or data analysis called a regression analysis, which means we can actually point to causation and not just correlation. So we can say, of these 58 questions that we ask you, these 5 things are the most impactful to your staff. So if you're going to focus on anything first, focus on these things. But a survey never gives us just, it gives us the what, but it doesn't give us the why. So if we see, for instance, that their organizational change score is low, we're not sure why it's low. We just know that it's low. So we always go in and talk to the employees. We think that's super important to hear from them what their experience is like. And, in those focus groups, we'll hear things like, well, we just went through a big merger and my department was scaled back and we've had 3 supervisors in the past year and a half. Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense as to why organizational change would be low. But that's not something that we'd hear on a survey alone. So we think having both the qualitative and the quantitative data is really important. We also spend time talking to the leadership team, and sharing our findings and getting their perspective. We get as much information from HR as we can with exit interviews. And so we just try to get a super comprehensive, clear picture as to what's going on, and then give really tailored feedback to the organization about here's a picture of your staff, and here's what's going to help them, and here's some things that are kind of easier, quicker changes, and here's some things that might take a long time and they have to be worked into a strategic plan. If they're cultural type shifts, that isn't something that can change overnight. If it's getting new computers for this particular group of staff, that might be a little bit easier of a change,
Right.
So we just listen, do a lot of listening, and we find that because we're a third party, people tend to talk more freely than maybe they would if it was their own HR department doing the digging. I think they feel a little bit safer talking to people who don't have any skin in the game, And then we work sometimes beyond making our recommendations with the organizations for how to implement some of these changes. What's been really awesome is that we've been doing a lot of reassessments lately. So going back and in the same organizations we've been to before to see if the changes have worked and how things are going. And so far, in 91% of the organizations we've been back to, their turnover rates have dropped.
That's awesome.
So it's awesome. Yeah, it's really, because turnover in behavioral health and other helping professions in Ohio, and my guess is across the country, it's kind of at an epidemic proportion. It's just, it stinks because these people are really wanting to do good work. And it's hard to do good work when, you feel like you can't because you have too much of it, or you're not given the tools you need to succeed, or you're not getting paid enough to live. So we're trying to do everything we can to help these organizations with what they have control over, make a positive work environment for their employees. So
I noticed
it's been
that
fun.
you said, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't have anything else to say.
I know that you said exit conversation.
Mm-hmm.
How important is having an exit conversation when you're leaving a job? Or how important is it for the HR department?
I think for the HR department, it's really important, especially if employees are willing to be forthcoming. I think it's harder in smaller organizations sometimes when the HR department is also the executive director or something, where if the problem is between the person doing the interview and the interviewee, then that is less productive. But I think all organizations as a best practice should be doing exit interviews, and then not just sticking them in a drawer, but using them to, continually improve the work environment based on what they're hearing from the employees who are leaving.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have resources. We have resources for everyone, not just about workplace bullying, but if you need just someone to talk to, you can go on imalive.org, and it's an instant messaging for anybody experiencing mental health crisis. You can call the sexual assault hotline, the domestic violence hotline, runaway safe line, or National Alliance of Mental Illness. And I'm sorry, but I forgot one, and that is the National Safe Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And that number will be shared in the chat. And we also have links of resources and references on the right-hand side of the screen. And I know that now we're not only dealing with taking care of ourselves, but now we're, whether male or female, you're taking care of others at home if you're working remote. So there's also a caregiver help desk. If you need a little support or you want to learn about the different techniques, that number is available to you. And disaster distress helpline, they're willing to talk to you as well. So thank you, Maggie, for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We want to hear from you. And why do we want to hear from you? Because we want to know if this was beneficial. We want to know if the information we shared with you today was helpful. If it wasn't, if we need to change some things around. If there's any topics that we haven't covered that you would like to hear covered, please let us know. And my producer is going to put the link in the chat, and you can just click on that. And as we go through, we only got a couple more slides to go. If you click on that slide, if you click on that link, it will take you directly to the questionnaire. Please fill it out. It tells us the good, the bad, and the ugly, and we actually do value your information and your criticism and your love and your appreciation for what we're doing, because without you, there would be no us. So I want everybody not to go away thinking about, man, I think I might be bullied, but I just want to let you know that you got this. You can overcome anything.
We have one more question. Someone is asking for a little more information on the positive sentiment override within the workplace as opposed to the relationship environment. So as opposed to like a personal relationship or a spousal relationship, how does that play out in the workplace?
Yeah. I think the same notion of a foundation of trust and security is ultimately what's guiding people to stay in any relationship or leave. In a personal relationship, if you feel insecure and there's not a foundation of trust, it's not a healthy relationship. And the same goes for organizations. If you do not trust that the organization is going to support you as an employee, then chances are your intent to leave, what we call turnover intention, is going to be higher. Now, has this been studied, beyond what we've been doing at Mental Health America of Ohio and our 60 some assessments? I don't know. This is just something that we have seen, this correlation with that people tend to leave relationships where there's a lack of trust, where there's abuse, where there's discomfort and discontent. It'd be fun to do a similar type study where you can, that Gottman did with couples to determine divorce. I mean, I feel like we could almost do that with organizations at this point, because if we go in and see that positive sentiment override within the organization is low, we could bet that their turnover intention is going to be higher. So yeah, it's been really interesting to see how they correlate to one another. And it makes sense just from a human nature perspective. If you feel supported and you feel like this person or this entity that you are in relationship with is doing right by you, then chances are you're going to ride the waves of the hard stuff with them.
I think it's kind of like a bank account, like you're making deposits into a bank account, and the more reserve you have as far as good relations, then the more you have to bank on when you have a difficulty or something. But do you have some practical things that people can do to create that positive sentiment override if they're trying to create a positive relationship? What are some practical things they can do to make a deposit in that bank account?
Sure. I mean, I would say that list that we had earlier kind of goes through a lot of them, but a lot of it is just transparent and open communication, and creating structure. People feel safe within a structure, especially within an organization, when they know what the expectations are and it's not always a moving target. I think positive feedback is super important, recognition for a job well done. And a lot of times recognition just for improving, looking more at the process versus the outcome sometimes, and so I think the same things that you think about with any friendship or, intimate type of relationship that matter, the same goes for what you expect out of your employer when it is about, am I willing to stay in this or not? I would also say that employees are, with younger and newer employees, expectations of employers are shifting and changing. And I think that they are holding employers to a higher standard than maybe we have in the past about how they want to be treated as an employee. They're less likely to stay in a job for a lifetime. It's not, I can't remember the exact stat, but it's like, not that millennials and Gen Z will have 3 different jobs in their lifetime. It's more like 3 different careers, so the willingness to change when they're feeling dissatisfied is a lot higher. And this is our new workforce coming in, so employers really have to pay attention to that, and understand that expectations are higher. It shifts as the market shifts, whoever kind of has the power, whether it's the employer or employer, based on, if jobs are out there. But right now, workplace well-being is a hot topic amongst employers, and it is because employees' expectations are becoming higher of their employers.
Right. We have one more question in the chat. Someone says, when you have a leadership team who is not transparent, not open with their communication, and someone is feeling bullied as a result of the power struggle, is the only option to leave? They said they want to be a change agent, but not at the risk of losing their own mental health. Is there things that you can do to make it better if you're not in a leadership position?
Yeah, that is a great question. And that is a hard situation. I think, one of the first things to look at is, do you have strong direct supervisory support that's going to have your back and go to bat for you as you are trying to make this change? You really have to balance and figure out what your tolerance levels are, and make sure that you're protecting yourself from too much emotional distress. But it is important to have change agents within organizations. How else are they going to change? So I would say finding strong allies, from a supervisory level that maybe do have more power within the organization to support you, to try to go through all of the proper channels, and document your way through it. And then have some safe and trusted peer support who, you can go to as you're trying to make headway, who are there to listen to you if you need to vent, who are there, where you can speak confidentially about how you're feeling through it. There's no easy or right way to do it, I would say, but I would definitely seek out allies and supporters, particularly in a managerial or director role, who can help you with making some of these changes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to let you know that you need to stay tuned, because our topic for April the 2nd will be ADHD. We also want to let you know that if you want to make a difference, take mental health first aid. We have adult and youth certifications available. And if you would like to be involved in getting certified, please put it in the chat and we will reach out to you. And we have SC Thrive's annual training for 2021. The topic is Unraveling Social Determinants of Health, and that will be September 27th through the 28th of 2021, and that will be in Charleston, South Carolina. And without our sponsors and without our clients and viewers, we could not do what we do. So I want to give a big shout out and thank you for coming today. And with further ado, we are SC Thrive. You can reach us at 800-726-8774, or you can check us out on scthrive.org. You can reach us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And we have over 14 videos right now for Mental Health Matters Forum that you could partake of. Thank you and have a good and blessed weekend.